This week in East Brunswick, we'll start with a quick look at the community beach and see what changes are in progress for this year's pool season. Then we'll have a look at an upcoming sports talk on Channel 8 with home news sports writer Gene Haley. And of course, we'll have our regular features. Bob Nemzer's Quick Clicks, today focusing on depth of field. Health Facts with Ken Shalhoub and information on cancer and anorexia. Our newest This Week feature, For Your Information, presented by the library's reference department. Adrian Eisner's Consumer Aware, today with advice on cordless phones. And we'll close with our weekly Township Council review. But first, here's a look at what's on Channel 8 next week. Monday at 10 a.m., it's Look Great, Feel Great with Lenore Kulik and a look at the art of breathing. At 10:30, For Art's Sake with Dolly Vasta and her guest, artist Keith Jones. Tuesday at 7 p.m., it's Check It Out, the monthly library program produced by the Libraries of Middlesex. At 7:30 Tuesday evening, it's Sports Talk with John Megliero and his guest Gene Haley, a home news sports writer. And beginning at 8 p.m., the Township Council's annual budget hearings, presented live. Wednesday at 3 p.m., Stories from the Library. At 8 p.m., it's The Arts, produced by Middlesex County Cultural and Heritage Commission. Thursday at 7 and 8, we'll be back with an all-new This Week in East Brunswick. And 8:30, it's About East Brunswick with host Mayor Fox and guest Director of Planning and Community Development, Bill Tanner, discussing traffic in East Brunswick. And our week ends Friday, beginning at 7 p.m. with a special recast of Tuesday's budget hearings. Now here's a preview of the improved facilities to be available to Township sunbathers this summer at Community Beach.
My name is Tom Williams. I'm manager of the Division of Parks. We're at the Community Beach in East Brunswick looking at the a rehabilitation project to the beach buildings. This project was authorized by a Township Council last year and construction began approximately 2 weeks ago. The rehabilitation was needed to make repairs to the building and utilities at the beach, which were first constructed in 1966. Some of the major objectives of the project are to replace the roofs on the buildings which were leaking and had some structural damage, repair and replace the existing siding, rehabilitate the men's and women's bathroom and shower facilities, and to relocate the chlorine caustic soda treatment area to a more secluded area. We also abandoned the existing septic system and connected it to the sanitary sewer system. The new roof line will incorporate skylights and exhaust fans which will correct moisture and ventilation problems which we've experienced in the past. Construction is scheduled to be completed before the facility opens in May for the 1986 season. All the improvements should make a safer and more enjoyable experience for beach members. For those interested in joining the Community Beach, I suggest you call the Division of Recreation at 390-6797. It's a great place to be in the summer, and I think you'll find the rates very affordable.
For high school and college sports fans in the Central Jersey area, the name Gene Haley means insightful and reliable sports reporting. Next week, John Megliero's Sports Talk corners Gene for a half hour of the home news writer's evaluation of what's what in local sports. Here's a bit of that interview.
Gene, you mentioned you've been following sports since the 30s.
Yeah,
How have high school sports changed over the years? We were talking about it a little bit before the show. But
Well, I think, even though, like I say, I'm an old timer, I still think the kids today are way better athletes than one. And it's a combination of things. It's the conditioning they're in, right down to better foods and everything else. But it's better coaching, better facilities, and I think it follows the skills are better too. And it's a complex game today in a lot of respects from the old days, and I think much more skillful, really do.
Is it good that there's a strong emphasis on sports in the high school level? You know, we get into arguments, you read in the paper, there's too much emphasis, there's not enough. How do you feel?
Well, of course, I'd be prejudiced. I think it's I think sometimes the only game in town. Yeah, it really is. I think football sets the tone right there. I think it's high school football is not just an athletic contest, it's almost a social event. It's a thing. It creates the spirit in the school, and sometimes a successful football team can set the tone for the whole school year and everything.
Sure.
And I just think high school sports are the greatest.
How about the quality of competition in general? Has it improved over the years? You know, we were talking again before the show saying how years ago New Brunswick was a powerhouse, Thomas Jefferson. Now we're seeing schools in various sports or in respective sports showing their power.
Well, but we have, you know, right here in the county, we have so many schools now. I think it's like I mentioned, 34 of them play basketball, you know.
Wow.
So there's, quite naturally, the talent level's pretty good. And you do have, of course, right here, East Brunswick's got to be one of the premier schools in all the sports, partly because of its size, but also because of the great job they do over there with their coaching staff. But you're right. When you talk about football, J.P. Stevens and at Edison and at East Brunswick and the Madisons, and well, you're talking about pretty quality football. And the same as basketball. The Perth Amboys and their New Brunswick's kind of dominated, but you know now we got some of those other schools coming along. East Brunswick's another good example of that, and St. Peter's here recently. So I think Middlesex County sports are a pretty good level, and baseball. I just did a piece on Sunday there about Mike Krakowicki, and everybody forgets it was just in the last few years they won 2 state Group 4 championships.
That's right. Yeah. How would you compare Middlesex County to, say, Somerset County or Union County?
Well, listen, I don't get to see Union County that much, though that's always been a strong county in all the sports. Somerset, of course, we see because we cover. Middlesex, I guess, because of its size, is, I think, a little bit better. Some nice football teams over there in Somerset, but on the overall, I'd say Middlesex probably is a little bit better, but Somerset's coming on. They got some good athletes over there, too.
Gene, any reason why some schools or towns are strong in football but not basketball, or strong in basketball? For instance, every time I think of the South Jersey, I think of soccer and wrestling. North Jersey, basketball. You think it's just the way the nature of the kids, or?
Yeah, no, I think it's basically a program thing. Well, you know, basketball, like I haven't been touching there. Now, for years we weren't doing much in basketball. We got a good friend of mine who graduated high school with Bill Blindo. Came along. He decided that you got to start teaching this game in the 4th grade, and he did. And he started running these clinics in the 4th grade. Hey, touching, come on, today is still a respectable basketball school. Bill, of course, went on and was an assistant coach with the Lady Knights there for a few years. A great X and O guy. But now I think you're seeing that more. Take right here in the town here, Frank Knoppenberg, young guy. He is with that basketball program on like a 12-month thing. He's keeping track of the kids on the lower levels and whatnot. It's got the kids playing in the summertime. So I think that's got a lot to do with it, you know. And some of the schools where there isn't that emphasis, that just don't have that kind of a program, don't have success in that sport. See? So a lot of it has to do with the youth programs in the town. Like over here, again, you're talking about a great youth soccer program. I think it reflects in their soccer team. And so it's a combination of that, but pretty much it's a program thing. I think if you had all those going in all the sports, they'd be good at all the sports.
Yeah, really. Are we overemphasizing sports, do you think, though, again? And
oh, no, never.
You don't think we can oversaturate the market?
Nah. I worry about that sometimes when we write about kids, you know, whether we glorify them too much. But no, I don't think so. God, this the best thing around, as far as I'm concerned, a good, healthy thing. We got some problems in a lot of other places in society, and I don't think sports is one of them. I think that's one of the positive forces.
Gee, let's talk a little bit about Rutgers. You cover high school football, obviously, in Middlesex County. Over the years, there seems to be a reluctance on the part of Rutgers to seriously pursue some of the county athletes, and vice versa. There's some of the county athletes who, for whatever reason, are reluctant to consider Rutgers. Is Rutgers missing the boat somewhere along the line, or are the kids?
No, I don't think so. I don't think quite agree that they were reluctant to recruit around here. It's difficult to recruit around here. That's one thing. Certainly when Frank Burns is there, and even now I know with Dick Anderson, they look at all schools. Right on the Anderson staff, there's Pat Flaherty, is assistant in charge of recruiting in Middlesex County. He's as many high school games as I'm at, you know, when he's there. So they're very interested. I think the problem they face, though, is not just in this county, maybe even more so in this county, but even the state, that the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. I don't know what it is. The kids don't look to go to Rutgers, and Rutgers don't have the great reputation amongst the kids. And I think if the ice has got to be broken somewhere, when some of our local kids start going there and then find success, maybe more would come. But I think Rutgers would love to have a lot of these kids and actively try. But well, we got a couple of boys last year. We had two of the final quarterbacks I ever saw in high school, and that was Darren Roberts at Franklin and Steve Hughes over here in East Brunswick. And I think both of them in talking to them just opt to go away and make their name rather than,
Sure.
you know, so, I don't know. Plus, you know, it's just a tough thing. Everybody, there's good athletics in New Jersey, so everybody comes in here, and so Penn State's putting on a hard show, Pittsburgh, you know, and the Iowas and whatnot, so it's tough. Rutgers has to compete against the best schools right in their own backyard, and that's tough.
To see this interview in its entirety, check the Channel 8 program guide next week for the time and date.
Where can I get the book Nobody's Girl? I read this book as a child and enjoyed it very much and would like my daughter to be able to read it, but I'm not finding it in your collection. Hi, I'm Barbara Cannon. I'm in charge of the Interlibrary Loan Service at the East Brunswick Public Library. Requests like this are often made at the reference desk, and yet many of our users are not aware that we can go beyond our own library collection to try to find materials that we do not own. If you do not find a book that you are looking for listed in the card catalog, come to the reference desk. We belong to a local, state, and national network that can be utilized to try to obtain the materials that you have requested. We have a courier service with the local libraries in South Middlesex County, and if the book is available at one of those libraries, we can get it for you in just a few days. If it is not available locally, we will call the state library, where your request will be processed and sent electronically to libraries throughout the state and country to be filled. There is no charge for this service unless the lending library stipulates a fee. The service is primarily used to obtain books, but we can obtain other materials such as photocopies from journals that the library does not own. If you have a request, please stop at the reference desk or call 390-6767. We hope to see you soon.
Hi, I'm Bob Nemser, and welcome to Quick Links. Today's topic, depth of field. The amount either side of your focus subject that is sharp in your pictures is known as the depth of field. Simple cameras without variable apertures will produce pictures that are sharp to about 6 feet. But on other cameras, you can vary the depth of field by 3 factors: the size of the aperture, the camera to subject distance, and the focal length of the lens. Altering the depth of field enables you to produce quite different pictures from the same scene, emphasizing some elements and leaving others unsharp, suggesting a sense of depth and so on. When the lens is stopped down at its smallest aperture, that's the highest f-stop, the depth of field is at its maximum. As you increase the aperture, lower the f-stop, this zone of sharpness around the subject is reduced. Camera to subject distance also affects depth of field. The closer you are to your subject, the shallower your depth of field becomes, and vice versa. This third control over depth of field is the focal length of the lens. The shorter the focal length, that's your wide-angle lenses, the greater the depth of field, even at its minimum aperture. A long lens, that's a telephoto, gives a completely shallow depth of field. Most variable aperture cameras have a depth of field scale on the lens. This enables you to judge the extent of the field at any one focus and aperture setting. For instance, if you have calculated the exposure for the subject you want to photograph at a shutter speed of 1/60th of a second and an f-stop of f8, the identical depth of field scales on either side of the focus mark, which is right here and here, will give you an area in which everything will be in focus, which in this case is 7.5 feet to 15 feet. If you look here, we're set at f8. f8 on the scale to the right of the focus mark gives you 7 feet, and F8 to the left of the focus mark gives you 15 feet. So everything between 7 and 15 feet will be sharply in focus. Let's look at some photos and analyze the depth of field of each photo. This first photo, using a wide-angle lens, shows the front of the cannon at the near plane in focus, and the little boy in the background slightly out of focus. This next photo of the same scene shows as the camera moved closer to the front of the cannon, the little boy in the background became more out of focus. The closer the camera to the subject, the shallower the depth of field. This photo, also taken with a wide-angle lens, shows the near plane, which are the doors of a church in Old San Juan, Puerto Rico, in focus, as well as the background being in focus. The lens was at a higher aperture and a slower speed, thereby increasing the area of depth of field. Here, using a medium telephoto lens at a fast speed with a lower f-stop setting, the depth of field was very narrow, allowing me to obliterate the background, thereby having the girl blowing a bubble as a center of interest with no other distractions. Thank you for joining me on this segment of Quick Clicks, Depth of Field, Part 1. Our next segment will continue depth of field, and we'll talk about hyperfocal distance and zone system. Thank you. See you soon.
Some cancer patients appear to develop a specific type of anorexia that is not a direct effect of chemotherapy or the tumor itself, but rather a learned aversion to specific foods they associate with their treatment or illness, according to a University of Washington Seattle psychologist. Moreover, says the researcher Eileen L. Bernstein, there is evidence that because the condition is behavioral as well as physiological, it can be at least partially corrected simply through a change in diet. Now, there have been some studies done. They did an ice cream study with some children where they fed the children a novel type of ice cream right before they had chemotherapy, and they found that afterwards the children would avoid that flavor ice cream later when offered. There also seems to be an overall effect of appetite loss due to the tumor itself, and they've done rat studies where they have induced tumor growth in rats and then fed them certain foods at certain points and caused them to actually avoid certain foods at different points of the tumor growth. So there have been some studies to back this up, and while these results confirm a learned food aversion, Bernstein suggested that because the aversion occurs only with certain tumors, there may also be a physiological component at work. Evidence indicates that this may involve the tumor's production of excessive toxins or hormones, or its depletion of nutrients from the body. In either case, she says it is theoretically possible to balance the system through diet, drugs, or supplements. She has already begun an intervention study with chemotherapy patients using the novel ice cream as a scapegoat taste just prior to treatment, using that food. If the people don't like that particular food, you use it, and that way the people just don't eat that food anymore, and then they can eat other things. So every time they get the chemotherapeutic treatment, they're fed this particular food right before, and it seems to work. So there's more to follow on this topic. Thanks for watching Health Facts.
Hello, and welcome to Consumer Aware. I'm Adrienne Eisner, Director of the East Brunswick Consumer Affairs Office. Today we are bringing you an important message if you are the owner of a cordless phone or are perhaps considering the purchase of one. The Food and Drug Administration is warning people that certain models of cordless phones with the ringing mechanism located in the earpiece can cause hearing damage. The agency is also offering the public a list that indicates the location of the ringer for many cordless phones currently on the market. In answering a phone with the ringer in the earpiece, unless the user remembers to set a switch to the conversation mode, the next ring can be directly into the ear. With some of the phones, the sound level can be nearly as loud as a shotgun blast. Although some cordless phones with earpiece ringers may not be loud enough to produce hearing damage, the most prudent practice is to buy and use a phone with the ringer located elsewhere. To prevent the possibility of hearing damage, the major manufacturers of cordless phones have agreed to redesign the phones. Additionally, some manufacturers have offered retrofit programs for owners of certain models. Despite the redesign, a large number of earpiece ringer phones remain in use. Some of them may also still be available for sale. Consumers who already own a cordless phone that has the ringer in the earpiece should take the following precautions. Never place the phone against your ear unless you have switched from the standby to the talk or conversation position, or have followed whatever the procedure the manufacturer recommends for preventing it from ringing in the ear. Be sure that the other household members and visitors know how to use the phone safely. Keep the phone out of the reach of small children. Be particularly careful when using earpiece ringer phones that have a paging feature, since some of these models can produce a loud signal in the ear when the paging feature is activated from the base unit. When buying a cordless phone, the FDA advises choosing one that does not have the ringing mechanism in the earpiece. To help consumers, the FDA has prepared a list of phones indicating the ringer location for each model. The list is not all-inclusive, but it is the best information currently available. To get the list, write to Cordless Phone List, FDA, HFZ-265, Rockville, Maryland, 20857. If you have any further questions about the cordless phone or any other consumer problems you may be experiencing, please contact us at the East Brunswick Consumer Affairs Office. We're located in the municipal building. Our hours are 9 a.m. until 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. The telephone number is 390-6954. Thank you for joining me on Consumer Aware. Hope I'll be seeing you again next week.
At this week's Township Council meeting, the Council discussed a resolution that would authorize the termination of the present agreement the Township has with the New Jersey Turnpike Authority regarding the Park and Ride facility located near Exit 9 and Route 18. Here's part of that discussion, beginning with comments from Councilman Louis Becker.
I've heard all of you say, maybe we need a parking facility, maybe we don't. We've had statistics showing that nobody parks. We've had statistics showing that some people park. I just want to go on record that I'm in favor of a multi-level parking facility, subject to Mr. Landis doing what he said he would, publicly, in the newspapers, in words, quoted many times, that he was going to pay for this parking facility. I've heard our mayor say many times, of course this was going to happen, and he put himself on record that the commuter fees would not be increased.
I recommended to you in my memorandum, and I still believe that while the terms of the lease require certain things, they've not always been diligently followed, that we can do a better job of giving preference to our residents if we control the lot, and that we should regain control of it because it gives us a lot of flexibility with regard to what we want to do. And you said earlier that our residents shouldn't pay for it. Our residents aren't paying for it. The money to pay for it comes from the interest earned on the $25 million bond issue. It's part of the purpose of it. If we never do another thing, if we cancel the $25 million bond issue, there's no lingering debt. The money is pure gravy that's coming from the investment of that $25 million.
Clearly, if we do this, it is a preface to moving forward with regard to some legal arrangement with Alan Landis for the completion of Tower Center. Without this, you can't do that. There's no question, Mr. Becker, that this could lead to that as one path. But the council said, when we discussed this, at least I did, and the majority of the council said, regardless of what happens on Tower Center down the road, the council felt it would be wise to buy the turnpike out in any case with these funds that come from no place except the investment of borrowed money, which I don't think we could spend for any other purpose than some sort of parking or stuff. We can't take that money and reduce taxes. At least I don't think we could. I think that would be a violation of the federal arbitrage laws. So we can't do anything with that interest money other than invest it in some way in a commuter parking. So I disagree with you completely, Mr. Becker, that and somehow we have money that that we're wasting or throwing away or stealing that could be used for some other purpose that would be beneficial to the community. The only reason we have the money is because of commuter parking. I agree with Mr. Becker that we need to move forward and reach some final resolution on the Landis thing. Now, I've said in the past, and I think other council members have said, that what we'd like to see is something like Mr. Landis builds the parking deck, pays the complete costs of its construction, guarantees parking for so many vehicles at a certain rate per day for so long, and we continue to own the land, and that at the end of the amortization period, then some rental income on the land would be paid in the future. Now, I understand the administration is reworking the specifications, and we're going to go out to bid, and Mr. Landis and anybody else who wants to bid on it can bid on it and will bid on it, and then the council will be able to evaluate that and see whether or not there's a deal to be made, if you will, or a bid to be awarded to Alan Landis with regard to moving Tower Center forward.
So why are we here trying to push this thing through by January the 28th, so Mr. Landis or whoever? Why should we rush? You know, the resolution reads, now therefore be it resolved that the East Brunswick Township Council that it hereby authorizes the mayor and clerk to sign the termination agreement in order to regain control over the park and ride facility and to guarantee priority to East Brunswick residents. Okay? Well, it's in our contract, it's in our lease, it was in it originally, and when it was altered a few years ago, the same stipulation was in there that East Brunswick Township residents would have priority. Why can't we use the courts of law to make New Jersey Turnpike comply with that and give 350 more people from East Brunswick priority over those 350 people who are out of this town? When we have a contract signed, sealed, delivered, witnessed, but no matter how you put it, it's a legal document. Why can't we make New Jersey Turnpike Authority abide by that contract? Why, you know, I'll ask you, Mr. Bush, is there some possibility of that being able to be done? Sure. Well, then why don't we do that instead of rushing to go through this tonight to get our people immediate use of that park and ride facility?
If it only takes 300 or 400 or 500 residents to utilize the parking area at the old Ramada site, then so be it, then that's all we need to do. We may not need, and I still say we may not need a 1,200 car garage. This lease, in my opinion, ought to be bought out. This lease, in my opinion, ought to be bought out because it gives the township absolutely direct control over who can park there. I simply don't want to take the turnpike to court and have this thing drawn out for perhaps 6 months, a year and a half. I want East Brunswick residents to be able to park there now. That's what I am concerned about.
Also at this meeting, Council President Jerome O'Connor discussed this year's township budget hearings. Coverage of these meetings begins Thursday evening, January 23rd at 8 p.m., immediately following Let's Talk Health. That's all for this week in East Brunswick. Thanks for watching.